Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. Hope that you're doing really well. Today we're going to be talking about fragrances that had hopes and dreams and aspirations. They had all the promise in the world, and yet nothing happened with them. So we're going to be talking about fragrances that are basically forgotten nowadays, that barely anybody cares about, that are still really versatile and will get the job done just about as well as any of the big name, big hitter designers will. And because a lot of these fragrances are basically forgotten at this point, you can find most of them for a really good deal. One of those times where another person's loss, or in this circumstance, another company's loss, is your gain. So let's jump into it. Let's check these out. We're gonna kick things off with Guess 1981 Indigo with the great blue jean coloration to the scent. How much dye did they put in there? All of it. This has fig, coconut, lavender, and cedar as some of the notes in the fragrance, and it also smells similar to Philosopos by Diptyque, which is a fantastic smelling fragrance, which is also much more expensive than this one. So with the fig and coconut in here, it's going to give you a really different take on a masculine versatile scent. Most of the time you're going to find citrus in the top, or apple, or something like that. Not so often fig and coconut. So it's tropical, it's fresh, and it's sweet. And Guess fragrances, a lot of times, are quite good as far as the quality goes versus the price that you're gonna pay. And that's because most people are not gonna pay a huge premium for a Guess fragrance. Just one of those things. Guess is not on the level of something like Giorgio Armani or Christian Dior or Chanel. So if somebody sees a Guess fragrance, just like if they see a Guess t-shirt, they're gonna value that a certain way versus a Chanel t-shirt. But the quality of Guess fragrances a lot of times will rival some of those lower tier, we'll say, designer houses with bigger names. And this one is really solid, great change of pace for spring and summertime. But because it is a Guess fragrance, it's already starting way back behind most of its competitors. Now this next fragrance didn't have so much that kind of issue where it's from a smaller house that nobody knows about. This one had a bunch of hype building up behind it before it came out, almost like a volcano ready to explode. People were getting hyped for it. Big name perfumer, pretty nice presentation, coming at the height of blue fragrance-dom. When everybody and their mama was coming out with a new blue fragrance, seemed like every week. Now, of course, they still do come out nowadays, but it's not quite at the fever pitch that it once was. The fragrance I'm talking about is Mr. Burberry. If you weren't around when this came out, which wasn't a huge amount of time ago, but if you weren't around, there was a lot of talk about, oh, I like the little ribbon on the bottle. Oh, the perfumer? It's Francis friggin' Kirkshon. You know, the guy behind Baccarat Rouge 540 and Le Mans, among many, many, many other fragrances. It just seemed like Burberry was coming correct. They were going to take their blue fragrance and shove it down your throat, and it was going to be right there with the Bleu de Chanel's, with the Dior Sauvages. And that is not at all what happened. That didn't happen. It basically came out and hit like a lead balloon. Not all that many people were singing the praises of Mr. Burberry. Now, it's not that the fragrance line died. You still have Mr. Burberry Eau de Parfum, Mr. Burberry Element, and taking a page from Guess, Mr. Burberry Indigo. So it's had flankers, but none of them have really taken off. Now, I do think Mr. Burberry actually smells really nice. It just maybe is too aromatic for the crowd that it's going for. Maybe not quite sweet enough. It has grapefruit, cardamom, cedar, and vetiver. It will absolutely get the job done. The versatility is through the roof, but maybe it's too, as I said, aromatic, a little too green around the edges for some people. The woodiness in here coming across differently than the more popular ambroxany, amber woody base that you'll find in other scents. For whatever reason, it did not take off. It didn't reach that jumping off point where everybody was talking about it, everybody wanted it. But you can get it for a great price now, and it gets the job done. After that, let's talk about Abercrombie & Fitch First Instinct Together. This is the newest in the First Instinct line, and who knows when or if a new one will ever come out in this line. Abercrombie seems to be going away from the First Instinct line. I mean, maybe they come out with something new at some point here in the future. That would be not a huge surprise. But I believe they have removed the First Instinct fragrances from their website, which is usually not a great thing. And they seem to be focusing more on Abercrombie & Fitch Fierce Flankers. Because if Fierce is good, then 25 versions of Fierce is better, I guess. Now this one's really sweet, going to appeal more to younger people. It's got kind of an Invictus Aqua meets YSL Eau de Parfum vibe to it. So you have that bubblegummy sweetness in here along with an aquatic freshness. It's got lots of fruits in here, apple, pineapple, and grapefruit among them. So that opening, really attention grabbing. The drag on this one was that in the US, it was a little bit difficult to find sometimes. I think if I remember correctly, I found mine in a store, just like a Marshall's or something like that. But you can find these at discounters now. So Fragrance Net, places like that, you should be able to find this now. For a good price too. And I would say with that one, if you're a fan of either of the fragrances I mentioned, Invictus Aqua or Y Eau de Parfum, you should check it out because it is really solid. Definitely one of the best ones in the First Instinct line, and I would say for younger guys, it might be the best one, period. This next one is a longtime favorite of mine, Lacoste L1212 Yellow. This one never got any of the love, man. It was always L1212 White. Everybody loved that one, which you can tell because how many flankers of that exist now. On top of all the limited edition fragrances that they did for L1212 White or L1212 Blanc, you also had the Eau de Parfum, you've got the new L1212 Eau Fraiche, just all kinds of flankers there. Basically, L1212 nowadays is just the L1212 White show. What about the other ones? What about red, green, black, yellow? Where's the love? This one though was always my favorite. It's simple. It's got tonic water and lemon, this kind of fizzy, zesty lemon opening, very uplifting, brisk, fresh. Little apple, little cypress in here as well. I thought it was a perfect casual dumb reach for summertime. Always dug this, and you could find it for a really good price. So for me, you know, going on a vacation or like a little weekend trip or something where I know it's gonna be hot outside, something like this that doesn't cost that much that you can just chuck into your bag is awesome. After that, we're doing a Tommy Bahama. We're doing Maritime, the original. I love the presentation here. The little dinky rope is cool. The cap has some heft to it, and it looks nice. It's decidedly upmarket compared to the Set Sail line. Now, the Set Sail line is overall more popular with people in the fragrance community, but I think these are overlooked, especially when you can get them for a good price. That's really what it's all about with this. To an extent, though, Tommy Bahama has the same thing going on as Guess, where you look at the name Tommy Bahama and you think, yeah, that's nice. I know about that name, but I'm not going to pay a premium for it. Unless you're like an older dad and you want to get their sweet, sweet, loud Hawaiian button-up looking shirts. This one's got lavender, pink pepper, violet leaf, and cedar as some of the notes in the scent. Not a bad little summer scent though. Really nice versatility. It's got a good compliment factor. The bottle looks good. Like I said, it's a slightly upmarket Tommy Bahama. Now this one makes me a little bit sad. It's Uomo Urban Feel from Salvatore Ferragamo. This almost feels like a fever dream, like it didn't even happen, and yet here it is in my hand. It's one of those fragrances that was announced, and I feel like it came out with no fanfare whatsoever, and then was just relegated to the clearance bins on discounters everywhere. And with Uomo Urban Feel, the Uomo line just died kind of a whimpering death. This fragrance line that once was heralded as a great step forward for Salvatore Ferragamo. The bottle some people thought was tacky, but overall, Ferragamo Uomo and Uomo Signature, a lot of people love, myself included. I think they're really great fall and wintertime fragrances, and when you could pick them up at a heavily discounted price, they were one of the premier cheapie buys that you could make. Urban Feel, at least in my mind, is almost like the last hurrah of Ferragamo Uomo before they moved everything over to the new Ferragamo line. You really got to give it to Ferragamo on the originality of these lines, the naming conventions. So Urban Feel was basically the blue fragrance in the Salvatore Ferragamo Uomo line. It's got bergamot, it's got ambroxan, and to switch things up a little bit, it's got ozonic notes and driftwood, which you don't see as often. It smells really nice, actually. It's got a good amount of sweetness balanced with some fresh spiciness. It's slightly dense at times, so it has a little bit more of a push than some of the lighter blue fragrances out there. But Urban Feel was actually a really good buy. For the price you could find this at, and I think that you can still find it at, it was a great choice for a discount blue fragrance that could go head to head with the heavy hitters. It had the versatility, it had the usability, the mass appeal, the compliment factor that people always look for. And even though it was very inexpensive, you didn't get railroaded with the chemical mess of death, because we have all purchased cheap fragrances at some point in our fragrance journey where you get it in and you think, man, I bet this was a great buy. And you spray it on and you just get assaulted with chemicals that singe your nose hairs. The one drawback for me with Urban Feel is that if this does indeed end up being the final Ferragamo Uomo fragrance, you almost feel like they didn't really go out on their shield, because Ferragamo Uomo and Uomo Signature are very different from this. So it's almost like they threw this out there and they were like, let's see if we can save it. They gave it just the smallest amount of time and said, nah, kill it. And then finally, to wrap this up, Van Cleef and Arpels in New York. I, along with a lot of other people, did not like this one bit when it came out, not a bit. And I've spoken about this before, but I'll quickly run through why. Van Cleef and Arpels had a fragrance called Midnight in Paris. Bottle is beautiful, fragrance is fantastic, and you could find it at discounters. And this kind of goes back with the Ferragamo thing. It's not good for the brand, it's good for us, and it was a big hit within the fragrance community. One of those cheapies that everybody had to have. The problem with that for the companies is that when you have fragrances that are flooding discounters to the point that the price is almost nothing, that means very few people are buying it at full retail price. If stuff is getting liquidated, and a lot of it is getting liquidated because it's not being sold, so they're moving the bottles off on the gray market to these discounters, that's not great. So a lot of people said, no, there's no way Midnight in Paris is going to be discontinued. It's so popular, it's so fantastic, just playing it's discontinued, goodbye. Then there were rumblings about Midnight in New York that was going to come out. They even had pictures of the bottle, which looked a bit familiar to the Midnight in Paris bottle. And I think it was on Fragrantica, maybe Perfumo. They had the Midnight in New York photos. Then a little bit before release, the Midnight gets dropped and it's just in New York. And instead of having that really classy, really pretty, very unique bottle, it's this. A square. So suffice it to say, Van Cleef and Arpels was starting behind the 8 ball. People were not really ready to forgive and forget. But in hindsight now, with all that well behind us and the fact that you can sometimes still find this for a good price, it is actually worth owning for a lot of people. It's nothing hyper new. C notes, lavender, citrus, tonka. Basically, if you could think of the most standard breakdown for a versatile men's fragrance in terms of notes, that's what this is. But there's no denying it's very pleasing. When you smell it, it smells good. It's going to be more so for people that don't have a huge collection, that are just looking for something that they can wear every day to the office, casually, on a date, on a night out, whatever. That will get the job done. And like I said, it smells nice, but it still hurts my soul that Midnight in Paris is gone and they were teasing us with Midnight in New York, and then they said, no, F all that, it's just in New York. Thanks for nothing, Van Cleef, and also Arpels. All right, I've been talking up a storm, guys. I'm gonna head out of here. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for your support. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.